A viewer asked why highways around the world use asphalt instead of concrete. And that's a great question because we use different materials for different things, so there must be some kind of advantage to using asphalt. But what is it? Well, here are the properties of asphalt. Strong enough to support the weight of vehicles. That part's easy. It's flexible, which means that when loads are applied to it unevenly or at an angle, the road doesn't crack. It can expand and contract with temperature changes without cracking. It's waterproof. In other words, water doesn't damage it. Water actually has a harder time seeping through asphalt than through concrete. It's resistant to most chemicals. If there's a spill, it can be repaired by simply removing the damaged section and replacing it with new asphalt. It's usually cheaper than concrete, especially in areas where there's a lot of it. It can be recycled. When a road needs to be resurfaced, the old layer of asphalt can simply be milled off, the surface removed and reused in other projects. It's very easy to repair. Potholes, cracks, and other small damages can be easily filled with asphalt and compacted so that the road can quickly be returned to service. It's noise absorbent. Vehicles are noisy, but asphalt helps reduce the noise they make. Concrete would reflect the sound waves from a vehicle back into the air, making the noise seem louder, while asphalt absorbs the sound energy and reduces the noise level. And finally, it's forgiving. If a vehicle leaves the road and runs over the shoulder, it'll come to rest on a bed of asphalt before hitting the ground. Concrete would just stop a vehicle dead in its tracks. So given all those advantages, why was concrete ever used on roads in the first place? Well, concrete is stronger, more durable, and requires less maintenance. A concrete road will outlast an asphalt road by a factor of 2 or 3. The reason why we don't see many concrete highways today is because of the way the United States got its start. The U.S. was the first country in the world to build a highway system connecting the entire nation. And the first paved roads were built in the early 20th century, when asphalt was cheap and plentiful. Because of newly discovered oil wells, by the time the interstate system was being planned after World War II, the petroleum industry had a lot of pull in Washington. And so they pushed for the adoption of asphalt as the main material for the new highways. But outside the United States, the situation was very different. Europe, for example, had been using concrete roads since the late 19th century. They didn't have the same access to petroleum that the US did, so they used the next best thing, concrete. And that's why today if you travel to Europe, you'll notice that their roads are made of concrete, while in the US, they're mostly made of asphalt. But not always. There are still some concrete highways in the US, and there are even some rare examples of countries whose roads are made of asphalt. One such country is Sweden. How does asphalt work in cold climates? Well, the key is to use special polymers in the binder that hold the aggregate together. When temperatures drop below freezing, water expands as it turns into ice. If water gets trapped inside asphalt, it can cause the road to crack and break apart. But the polymer binder holds the aggregate together no matter how much the temperature fluctuates. It's also waterproof, so the aggregate won't be damaged by water and ice either. In fact, Sweden has so much confidence in their asphalt technology that they guarantee all their highways for 20 years. If a road fails before then, the company who built it has to fix it free of charge. And this only applies to roads built after 1998. So if a road fails before then, it might be fixed for a fee, or the local municipality might simply choose to leave it unrepaired. Another country with lots of asphalt is New Zealand. There's a good reason for this. The islands that make up New Zealand are volcanically active and prone to earthquakes. Earthquakes produce a lot of energy in a short amount of time, which puts tremendous stress on roads. If they were made of concrete, all that energy would be transferred directly into the ground, causing severe damage to the road. But asphalt is flexible, so it can absorb some of the shock and deformation caused by an earthquake. Asphalt is also forgiving. It'll spread the load over a larger area and return to its original shape once the earthquake passes. Concrete, on the other hand, is brittle. It can absorb any energy without fracturing and it won't go back to its original shape once deformed. Because of this, during major earthquakes, you'll sometimes see asphalt roads in New Zealand buckle like this. But that's not a bad thing. It's actually what asphalt is supposed to do. If it buckles, it spreads the load over a larger area and prevents catastrophic failure. Then after the earthquake, it'll return to its original shape. Meanwhile, a concrete road would simply shatter. Of course, there are some downsides to asphalt. For one thing, it wears away faster than concrete. A fresh layer of asphalt is smooth, but as vehicles drive over it, the friction from the tires causes the road to wear away. Eventually, the road becomes so worn down that it needs to be resurfaced. On average, an asphalt road needs to be resurfaced every 10 to 20 years. The constant friction also causes the road to get a little thinner over time. This isn't a big deal for low-traffic roads, but for highways. The constant stream of heavy vehicles causes them to wear down so much that they need to be completely replaced every 30 to 40 years. And when that happens, there's a lot of wasted material. All that old asphalt doesn't just disappear. It's stockpiled along the highway right-of-way and trucked to a landfill. But even though asphalt has its drawbacks, it's still cheaper than concrete, especially considering how difficult it is to build and maintain concrete roads. Building a concrete highway requires specialized equipment and skilled labor that aren't always available. You also need to keep the concrete wet during construction to prevent it from setting too quickly. And concrete roads require regular maintenance. To prevent cracks from forming, the concrete must be sealed with a chemical solution. Plus, if there's ever a spill on the road, the damaged concrete must be jackhammered out and replaced. None of that is cheap. Which brings us to another drawback of asphalt. Since it wears away so quickly, it's not a good idea to put it on bridges. If the deck of a bridge is made of asphalt, it'll wear away long before the steel structure underneath it reaches the end of its lifespan. That's why most bridges have a concrete deck. In the end, there's no single material that's best for all applications. Each material has its own unique properties that make it well suited for certain jobs and not others. And that's why we use asphalt for some roads, concrete for others, and even wood for some. Thanks for watching.